For my PSA, I read Why We Make Mistakes by Joseph Hallinan. I found this book very insightful as it helped me to understand why I frequently make mistakes in life, from errors in test taking to forgetting passwords to mixing up names and faces of coworkers and classmates. This book does a great job in helping one to see that common goofs aren't made because we're stupid, but rather because our brains deal with mass amounts of information by trimming down, straightening out, and misaligning the things that we know. For example, with memory, can you tell which of these pennies is real and which is the fake? We've all seen thousands of pennies in our lives. However, when trying to recall the details of this valuable piece, it is easy to mix up each feature. If you are unable to tell, don't beat yourself up. In a study testing 20 people, only one, who was an avid penny collector, could accurately recall and locate 8 critical features when sketching the front and back of a penny. The other 19 could only recall 3 details. The difference between the collector and the rest of the group was that each of the features on the penny had a special meaning to him. Try this example. Is Reno, Nevada east or west of San Diego? If you guessed east, you're absolutely wrong. And it's not because you're a dummy or bad at geography, but it's because your brain may edit lines and details in the map of your mind in order to make things more symmetrical. Joseph Hallinan best describes the science of your brain in this soundbite from the CBC's Wiretap with Jonathan Goldstein.
Joe Hallinan, you wrote a book called Why We Make Mistakes.
True.
If we could just cut right to the answer, so why is it? Why do we make mistakes?
Long story short, people aren't wired the way they think they're wired, and that leads them to make a lot of mistakes that they wouldn't otherwise make.
And how do we think we're wired?
Any number of different ways, one of which is people think when they look at something that their mind takes a picture of it, that they get an absolute perfect photographic rendition of it, and it turns out that that's not the case, that you actually miss many of the things that you think you see. One funny mistake involves the actor Burt Reynolds.
Oh, yeah.
Years ago, when he was relatively unknown, he walks into a dark bar, starts having a drink. The guy a couple bar stools down starts mouthing off to a young couple, and Burt Reynolds interjects, and pretty soon it gets heated. And Reynolds notices the guy has pretty big shoulders, so he thinks he probably ought to take the first punch on the guy. So he hits him in the face and just knocks him off the bar stool. In fact, the guy goes flying through the air, and only then does Reynolds recognize the fact that the guy has no legs. And we use that to illustrate the fact that people can look at a scene but not see some very important things that they should see.
So for once, Burt Reynolds was punching someone in the face not to be a jerk, but to actually illustrate some aspect of cognitive theory. And so in answer to the question that the book's title poses, Why We Make Mistakes, at the end of the day, is it just because we're dumb, and in some instances mustachioed?
We're not dumb. It's the interesting thing about human perception is that it appears to be economical, and we're able to sort through all the things in our day-to-day life very quickly. But one of the downfalls of that is you're not seeing things literally as they are, but as you've learned to expect they ought to be.
Right.
When we're kids, we tend to process information like words in a book very slowly, reading them literally one at a time, sometimes pausing to sound out the various sounds of the words. As adults, we learn to process information very rapidly, and that helps explain why we miss things like typographical errors, because you and I, when we read, we probably don't read every letter and every word, but rather we kind of skip around, get the gist or meaning of the thing, and move on. And in part, that's what enables us to be good at what we do, because we have to assimilate a lot of information quickly. But the way we do that is by swapping accuracy for speed, and that's where the mistakes come in.
And so what do you think we can do to make fewer errors?
There's some really simple things that people can do just in their day-to-day lives to make fewer errors. One of the most effective is just writing things down in a checklist form, just like you use when you go to the grocery store. Write down you need bread, milk, eggs. Just in January, the New England Journal of Medicine published a study where they looked at 8 hospitals around the world where they had the surgeons just do one simple thing, which is use a checklist before they operated on people. And they found that when they just used a checklist, the surgical death rate fell by nearly half.
Huh.
Yeah, just writing things, and really basic things like check the name of the patient to make sure you're operating on the right person.
And for yourself, I mean, what is your relationship to your mistake making? Is it sort of like an entomologist who's like just captured a butterfly? You know what I mean?
That's
You
a
feel
very
like
good.
it's there for you to study, like you know.
That's a very good way of putting it, and I think that's true. I actually made one of those typographical errors in the website for the book. I dropped the word "make," which is a very big word in a sentence about why we make mistakes. I missed it. My publisher missed it. All the people I'd read the website missed it. Until one guy who happened to be an engineer from Ohio read it and said, "You're missing a word in this sentence." And I went back and read it. Sure enough, the word "make" was missing. And I asked him, in an attempt to learn from my mistakes, "How did you catch something that I missed?" And he said, "Well, all my life people have told me that I'm a slow reader." And I thought, boom, that's exactly right.
Huh.
Why we mistakes?
Why we mistakes?
Why we mistakes?
Well, thanks for talking to me, Joe.
Hey, my pleasure.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Why We Make Mistakes is a great read and can help you to better understand why your students make simple errors and how you can help them to overcome this challenge. But you don't have to take my word for it.